Hey everyone, it's Warriors NRL Fanatics here. Tonight I've got a very special guest joining me on the channel for the second time actually, because you guys might remember during the off season at the start of the year I had Andy on, and we did some we did a discussion as well on the around the pre-season coming up and in regards to this year. So it's good to have Andy on again. It's he's really busy man, and I appreciate him for coming on. Jumping on with me to have a chat about the footy season that was 2023. And boy, what an NRL season it was, especially for rugby league and as a whole. And my wires, we're going to talk about, give his opinions on how they've gone this year as well, and maybe look ahead to next year as well. But we'll have say hello to the people in the chat here. So you've got Josh Rabbitohs 2023. How's it going, Josh Rabbitohs 2023? And All Things Bulldogs is saying here, I watched your replay, mate. Two absolute legends. No worries. All Things Bulldogs. Good to see you in the chat. He's another good YouTuber, content creator, and he's a big Bulldogs fan as well. All Things Bulldogs. So good to see him here. But Andy, before we get into and give our thoughts on the regular season as a whole, get your thoughts actually. Just on how general life has been this year for yourself, and how's things been going with the podcast? Has it been a great success, and what's been happening in your world?
Always plenty happening in my world, legend. Everything, going good. Enjoying a bit of the warmer months. I was just saying before we came on air, we've recently adopted 2 Labradors. We do work for an organisation called Labrador Rescue. So when the dogs are unwanted, we foster them and we find them their forever home with parents. And we failed. We fostered them and we failed. So we've adopted them. They're now here. And ironically, 2 of our previous foster dogs, their parents have gone away for the weekend. So they've come over. So we have got 4 Labradors running around the house at the moment. So I'm actually more than happy coming in here and talking footy and getting out of the madness. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And boy, what a season it's been as well in the NRL as a whole. And you look back at this year, going into this year as a start, first Penrith chasing a bit of history themselves, trying to go for the 3 in a row. It's never been done since the Parramatta days. You're a massive Parramatta fan yourself. You would have known how that felt a couple of years ago. Just looking at that Penrith side going into this year, there were some people saying that maybe they've lost a few players, that they might come back down to the pack. But I never thought that as a whole. What are your thoughts there? Just like the way, Penrith going into this year, because they lost some players, but they still pretty much had, a strong side.
Yeah, that they had a strong side and a great side. And I've done other interviews, and with Penrith, I don't think they surprise anyone with things that they do on the field. Like they don't play a different style of football, but what they do so well. And whether you like them or whether you don't like them, you got to appreciate them. I think 3 in a row, man, in this day and age, so difficult. Congratulations to them. But okay, you've had your run. Time's up. Time to give someone else a go.
Yeah, so Penrith, that grand final, just like going as a whole, that grand final was incredible in itself. Probably one of the best grand finals we've seen in quite a while in the NRL, because there's been some blowout grand finals over the past couple of years and non-competitive, but this one was, for Brisbane, they had their chances. They did for sure. When you look at the second half, they had Penrith under all sorts of pressure. I thought Penrith were gone. I mean, you don't usually write off a champion side, but they looked a bit, they looked a bit tired, But Penrith, to their credit, the old Nathan Cleary, you got Stephen Crichton scored that try, and then Nathan Cleary, man, what a moment that was for Nathan Cleary and Penrith. Just what are your thoughts here when that all transpired and Penrith made that comeback?
I think, like most of us, I think I was sitting there watching, and I think Brisbane have got this, but I never thought it was actually over. And when it started, boy, didn't it start! they were phenomenal to watch. And what Nathan did was tremendous. And a GF that will long be remembered by a lot of people for a number of different reasons. Makes it a long off season for Kevin Walters and the Broncos. They should have won it. They'd done enough. They should have won it, and it makes for a long off season. But you get the feeling this Brisbane footy side, pretty good footy side, and they're going to be around for a while. They'll get another chance.
Yeah. So on the season as a whole, what were your thoughts on the whole season? How did you feel? Did you feel it was a good year for the sport in terms of rugby league, the competitive nature? Because although Penrith won 3 in a row. We saw some teams that featured in the finals that we did not expect to feature at the start of the year. Like my boys, the Warriors, the Wars, and also the Broncos, they rise to second as well. After a year where they missed out on the top 8. What are your thoughts here? Just on the nature of the competitiveness of the NRL this year, even though Penrith did win that 3 in a row.
The bottom 3 and the Dogs, the Dragons, and the Tigers. Yep. Look, if we give them a couple of wins each, and take a few wins off the top teams, it's a really, really close competition. Big disappointments with the Gold Coast. What an off season they've got under Des Hasler.
Yep.
The Rabbitohs, the Eels, and the Cowboys, they'd be filthy they didn't make it. They'd be absolutely filthy as it turned out. As bad as the Eagles were at times, they were only 3 points off the Roosters and the Raiders. The Knights were a big surprise. I mean, there was plenty of feel-good stories. The feel-good story of the year was the Warriors. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And that there is one every year. The year before it was the Cowboys who surprised everyone. But the Warriors, and it was timely considering what they've been through over the last couple of years. The crowds, 3 straight sellouts to end the season, playing really good footy, watching Sean Johnson in his twilight do his thing. Newcastle Knights, they were a tremendous story. And to see McDonald Jones Stadium sold out so many times late in the year, that was brilliant. As to what happens next year, I have got no idea because the Panthers lose a little bit, the Broncos lose a little bit, the Storm lose a little bit, but it seems every other club is building just a little bit as well. So tough off season for all them as they rip into training. Mate, we'll speculate and toss up theories for the next little while, and it'd be interesting to see what happens when it all gets cracking.
Yeah, so on the teams, any teams in particular that really stood out for you, like surprised you in terms of this year, like team that you didn't expect to have such a rise in making it up there in terms of the finals? Any team in particular you thought that was a standout, for you?
Okay, I'll tell you right up, and I do some radio in New Zealand. I had the Warriors in the top 8 at the start of the year, so they actually didn't surprise me. The Knights stunned me. The Knights absolutely stunned me. I didn't see that coming. I don't know where it came from. Good on them. They played some terrific footy at the back end of the year where, they were led by Kalen, but it was team performances from the Knights. Be interesting to see how they back up and if they can back up in 24, because there's not a whole lot of experience in terms of longevity at the Newcastle Knights. So, but if they keep playing the same footy, they'll be there when it all matters. But the Knights for me were the big surprise.
Yeah, they were a surprise because for me, I didn't really have them in my top 8 at the start of the year. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't expect such a rise for them. Kalen Ponga really, his form at the back end of the season was a big talking point because at the start of the year, he struggled. He had the concussions as well, the struggles with concussion. He took a bit of a break. He went overseas, and he came back he came back a stronger player. Even though he missed out on the Origin, but I think that was a blessing for him to miss out on Origin selection. What are your thoughts there on KP? Because he had his struggles.
That was another one of the stories of the year, wasn't it? Really was. The Warriors, the Knights, Sean Johnson and Kalen Ponga. I mean, just amazing. What Kalen did at the back end of the year was phenomenal, because earlier in the year there were serious questions on if he'd ever play footy again. I mean, really serious questions. He's done a tremendous job.
Yeah, so was there any team in particular you had in your finals this year, or a team you expected to do a lot better? Because like a team that disappointed you, like in terms of you expected a lot more. Because I had the Roosters up there. I had them as my minor premiers. They only just made it into the 8. Is there any team in particular you had your eye on? You thought they would do a lot better than what they should have for?
Rabbitohs and Eels. There was a point midway through the season. The Rabbitohs, they looked to be the most dominant side, and and by a margin. The Eels just never got their stuff together, which was, as an Eels fan, so frustrating. They finished the season 12 wins, 12 losses. They're better than that, or they should be better than that. Big year for Brad Arthur this year, mate. Huge year. And I don't even think a top 8 spot should be their goal. I think Parramatta with their roster should be a top 4 side.
Definitely.
And anything less is probably not a pass mark. But you look at the Raiders and the Sharks, the Roosters. I think the Roosters finished like the Knights 5-0 their last 5 games. Wow, what a way to finish the year.
Yeah, and I'll just pop into the chat to say hello to Up the Waz. Evening, lads. How's it going, Up the Waz? Good to see you in the chat there. Hope you're doing well yourself. But just going through my notes and what I had. It's just to ask you in regards to I'll just ask you on the Eels. You mentioned the Eels and your team that really disappointed you, because they had a great year the previous year. They made the grand final. I had them in my top 8. I had them in my top 8 for sure. I thought they were going to challenge for the top 4, but that wasn't the case this year. Just on your Eels, how do you reckon? What went wrong for them this year? Because there were some games where, there were close games that they probably should have won, and also there were games where they just let themselves down. They had some injuries as well. They definitely had some injuries and suspensions which really affected them. But what are your thoughts on your Eels?
They let some games go early in the year, and by big margins that were just terrible performances, poo-poo performances. Very, very disappointing. And I think it's almost not where they ended up, Para, that's the disappointing part. It's how they ended up there. A lot of work. It's a better roster than that. I don't know if it's a premiership winning roster, but it's a better roster than that. Thank you to Up the Waz for always loved your commentary, Andy. And we've got a new one here. Hey, lads, with the injection of some new coaching acquisitions, has Laflano, do you think next season will be the most tightly contested comp we've seen? As we were just saying, Legend, the Panthers and the Broncos losing a couple of players each. Question mark over the Storm. And every other side looks to be improving, or most sides look to be improving. I would love nothing more than round 24, 25, 26 to have 17 sides within 6 points of each other. Everyone's still with a chance. That would be phenomenal to get down to the last game of the last weekend that, 5 or 6 sides are sweating on the result. That'd be brilliant.
Definitely, for sure. And just touching on your Eels lastly on this one, but did you feel like the expectation of your side this year may have got to them, or do you feel like, because that's what it felt like, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Brad Arthur, he's probably going to be under a bit of pressure next year, isn't he? There'll be a lot of.
He's under enormous pressure, and it doesn't matter how long his contract is. He is under enormous pressure, and I don't think a top 8 is going to keep him safe. I don't know what it was. I don't know whether they were complacent because they made the grand final the year before. I don't know whether they took it easy, but it's a kick in the bum what they did last year. And if they needed a kick in the bum, that was it. So it'd be interesting to see how they respond. It will be, but we can say that for, we can say that for the Rabbitohs as well.
Sure. Yep.
That's not a top 8. That's a top 4 roster, what the Rabbitohs have got, and they missed the 8 as well. So 2 sides with plenty to prove.
Yep. And what do you feel like? What do you feel like the main aspects for the teams that struggled down the bottom half of the ladder? What do you think they need to improve on next year? Because you got those couple of teams there. They've got new coaches. You've got the Dragons. They've got a new coach himself. And
the bottom 4 sides have got new coaches for next season, and the other side, being the Bulldogs, have got basically a roster overhaul. They've got rid of 50% and they've brought in 50%, which they had to do. There's some big news breaking tonight about the Bulldogs back to training on Friday, and Raymond Fatala-Mariner has been told not to turn up to training. He was he was the club captain. So, plenty happening. There's always plenty happening. Rugby league never sleeps. And I actually think over the next couple of weeks, you'll see even more players changing and new clubs for new players and letting someone out of a contract or play a trade. Perhaps there's going to be a bit happening prior to Christmas.
Yep. And what are your thoughts on the Dolphins this year? Their first year in the competition. I think they've, I feel like that a lot of people had them near the bottom half of the ladder. A lot of people had them spoon contenders and all that. But I feel like they've done well. They started off the year pretty well, but obviously a lack of bit of depth there. They had some injuries, suspensions. How do you feel they went this year? I feel like they will be on the improve next year. They've got Herbie coming from the Broncos, which is a very good signing. So how do you feel like the Dolphins will go in the near future?
I thought they were they were tremendous. I really did. First season. What about round 1, a victory over the Roosters? I think, was it 28-18 or something like that, up at a full Suncorp stadium, and the dream run for the first couple of weeks. What a start it was. So that gave everyone an interest. The Dolphins, they were the real deal, and they exceeded my expectations. I always thought the Tigers were sadly going to be the battling to avoid the Woody spoon. But the Dolphins exceeded expectations. They did a great job. They've bought well in the off season with Tom Flegler, who I think in a couple of years' time will be the number 1 front rower in the game. They've got Herbie Farnworth. They've got Jake Averillo. They do have more that slip my head at the moment, but they could be a little sneaky next season. They could well be a little sneaky.
Yep. Yeah. So just on the current top 8, any of the current top 8 do you see like dropping out next year, or maybe on the slide, or do you feel like the top 8 may stay the same, or
tough one, isn't it? Because
tough, isn't it?
We've already discussed the fact that the Knights surprised us. The Roosters, for better part of it, they looked like they were absolutely no hope. The Raiders had good and bad, and then they snuck in. So you look at the Rabbitohs and the Eels and the Cowboys.
Yeah.
You would think they're all genuine chances. The Eagles with Luke Brooks there is going to take a lot of pressure off Daly Cherry Evans.
Definitely.
They did it without Tommy Turbo. So, hopefully Tommy gets through a full season. So there's 12 sides before we even look at the bottom 5. But there's 12 sides. They're going to be going for 8 spots. And I know maths was never my strength at school, but 12 doesn't fit into 8. So there's going to be 4 disappointed sides.
Yep. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it's going to be real an interesting off season coming up. There's been a bit of movement, talks, rumours, with players and where they're going and all that sort of stuff. But I want to get into the Warriors now, my boys, the Wars now, and put a focus on them because just looking at this season as a whole, me and you talked about it during the off season, and we discussed the Warriors squad. And you said it was a top 8 side, and you were absolutely spot on. A lot of people, said the Warriors weren't going to be where they are this year. A lot of people had us near the bottom 4 again. This year, what are your overall thoughts on the year they've had, their season? Because this team has gone through a lot over the past couple of years. Coaching changes, players changes, being based in Australia due to, the COVID pandemic, but now being able to, have that, base at home and then having a new coach come in, Andrew Webster, where a lot of people weren't, really sure about, including myself. I know he was a good assistant back at Penrith, but, what a run he has put together for the Warriors this year, getting to this team to the top 4 for the very first time in a very long time, since 2007, and 2011 was the last time we made the preliminary final. We got to a prelim final. So, what are your thoughts there on how the Warriors have gone and how the rise of this team has gone through?
I thought they were brilliant, and I thought they deserved it. I thought their fans deserved it. I thought New Zealand sport deserved it. Story of the year for me, and I'll go back to. I'm going to say early April. They were down 30-0 against the Sharks, and they were gone, and they looked rubbish. They looked rubbish. And they scored 32 second-half points and won the game, stole the game. And that gave them a little bit of confidence. I've got a feeling they lost the next week in a game they probably should have won, and they sort of went win-loss. But they were competitive. And you've been a Warriors fan long enough to know that, the back end of games, it might be a 6-point game, but when it gets out to 8 or 10 points, the Warriors have traditionally dropped off, and that's when they get beaten by 24. That wasn't happening. They were invested. They were into it. They were physical. They were smart. I thought it was brilliant. And I reckon I'm like a lot of Aussies. I loved every minute of what they did because they were playing good footy. It was good to watch, and they were beating teams that we don't like.
Yeah, exactly. And up the wires, his favourite game of 2023 was against the Sharks. Yeah, it was one of those games where I thought to myself, hopefully we don't. It looks like we're going back to the old habits again. We started off. Well, first couple of games we won, and then this game we were down 32-0 or something. It was 32-0, I think, was at the time. I thought, look, the Sharks would just make it so easily. The Warriors' defence was just all over the place, and I thought we're going back to our old selves again. But to our credit, we just got ourselves back in it. That second half, I did not see that coming. I really did not see that coming because I thought, I'd be happy if the score was a lot, felt like if we can get some more points in the second half. And look, a loss isn't great, but, I'd be happy if we just, take some pride into the second half. But it was more than pride. We won the game. We came back.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
That was a brilliant afternoon, and it was away from home. It was against the odds. There was a game. early mid-season, I guess, against the Panthers. Now, wow, that might have even been Magic Round.
Yeah, because I went to that game. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was there.
and that's when I thought you guys looked good, and it was only a couple of weeks later. Testing my memory here. A couple of weeks later,
all good.
I reckon the Broncos got you by a couple of points, and then you went on a run, and that was when a whole lot of people started going, "Wow, they're bloody good," and they were. Up the wires, Andy, do you think SJ can back up his 23 form into 24? There's no reason why he can't, isn't there? But tough. I mean, really tough. I tell you what I like seeing about Sean. He had a smile on his face, and that isn't always the case. He did as a young bloke. He had a smile on his face because he was young and he was playing footy. He was getting paid well, and it was fun, and he was kicking everyone's backsides. Then he lost the smile, and he looked surly. He looked like he wasn't enjoying, but he had the smile on his face. So I thought that was terrific. The individual story of the season, no doubt. Him and Kalen Ponga, probably a dead heat. It was great to see. Can he do it again? Massive ask because he was so good. But there is absolutely no reason why he can't. And if he does do it again, does he go around again in 25? Absolutely he does, or he should.
Yeah. Just like on the players and on Andrew Webster, I felt like the way he speaks, just the way he speaks in his press conferences, he's a guy that takes it one game at a time. He's not he doesn't get far ahead. What were your thoughts on how Andrew Webster's just the way he's done this year in terms of the job, getting this team, just to be more consistent side on a regular basis throughout the year? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, he's done a terrific job, and he's done a job that I think he's exceeded expectation. He's certainly exceeded my expectation. I didn't question the decision of Cameron George and the Warriors when they signed him. But it was a curious signing. It really was, and I didn't know what to expect. I've known Andrew for a lot of years, but we've never really crossed paths on a personal level. Always very polite, very honest, very engaging young bloke. He's a footy tragic. He just loves it. He's the absolute footy nerd, and he's look. He served his apprenticeship too at a number of clubs, and to see him get rewarded with a first grade spot was terrific. To see him get rewarded with the performances last year, even better, but then a long-term contract. That's brilliant. That is brilliant. He served his apprenticeship. He's done the hard yards, and he's enjoying life at the top at the moment.
Yeah, and what he's brought to the side is something which we had similar under Ivan Cleary when he was back at the Warriors only a couple of years ago. So, that's just brought back a bit of a familiar sort of feeling. Which as a Warriors fan, you just feel so proud. What he's achieved and gotten this team to where it is. A lot of, this year could have easily been one of those years where the Warriors could have just had a rebuild. Could have been one of those rebuild years, but Andrew Webster's come out and said, no, we're going to get the Warriors to be a consistent finals team, contending up there for a premiership, and that's what you want to do. You don't want to be going to just making the top 8. You want to be contending for premiership. So, which is
absolutely right, and it all starts with getting into the top 8, which is what you've done. Now it's about building on it, and there's you guys have also got a former Dally M winner coming back to this footy side, so. Plenty to be excited about with RTS coming back. There is so much to be excited about.
Yeah, so just on the season as a whole, is there a signing that the clubs brought in that really stood out to you, like a player for the Warriors? It was a signing that, it was an underrated signing, a player that a lot of people maybe did not expect to, do so well.
Luke Metcalf, with a little bit of luck,
Yep.
would have been the one. I thought Murata was good. I thought Chance was magnificent and equally as magnificent for the Kiwis over the last month. There's three off the top of my head that I could say, we're all terrific buys, and they're proven to be terrific buys, and that roster build continues with Rog next year.
Yeah, and in terms of an unsung hero, who do you reckon the most underrated sort of player?
Wade Egan.
Yeah.
And I don't. The Australian media jumped on his bandwagon halfway through the season. Oh, Wade Egan's this, Wade Egan's that. Wade's game hasn't changed for 4 years. It's just the blokes that he's got around him. It showed how little some people in the media watch rugby league or know rugby league, because Wade's performances have not changed. He is such a consistent footballer and such an underrated footballer, and is such a good little fella. I was over the moon to see him, get the raps this year that he thoroughly deserves.
Yeah, that's right. I've been a fan of Wade for quite some time, and I've always had a bit of a rated him quite highly. He this year, he's been gone. He has been going through a bit of a bit of a rough patch with a few concussions. He's been hit up a couple of games. Like, you can tell that he puts in a lot of work, Wade Egan. He puts in plenty of work.
Tough little Lithgow boy. Just about an hour's west of Sydney. He was playing country first grade as a 16 or 17-year-old hooker, which is unheard of. That they bash teenage hookers in the country just for fun. But he was terrific little hooker. When he left Penrith, there was a lot of disappointment out there, because many thought, and this is before Appy, many thought he was the one that was, destined to be a 10 or 12-year hooker for the Panthers.
Yeah, for sure. And just a bit of water in me. So, look, there was Adam Fanua-Blake. There's quite a few others. The Warriors had a lot of players hit career best form. He got the prop of the year with Payne Haas this year, and also Dylan Watini-Zelezniak also picked up a award as well for the wing of the year in the NRL. So, just generally, what were your thoughts on how those players, how their seasons went? Because Dylan Watini-Zelezniak, he's just had one of those seasons. He really has had one of those seasons.
Yeah, he's had one of those seasons, and if we're going to be honest, it was a career-defining season this year for Dallin, because he hasn't been up to it the last couple of years. He's been disappointing, and there was pressure on him because he's not getting any younger. There's young kids within the system that they're options now. They really are options. What he did was tremendous, and it wasn't even winding the clock back for me to his debut year. That was winding the clock back to when he was in Jersey Flegg for Penrith and New South Wales Cup for Penrith. That's what the stuff he was doing and the impact he had on games. Running like, Carmichael Hunt, like a raging bull into defences and scoring tries and doing it easy. Good to see Dallin doing his thing, even though it's the worst perm mullet I've ever seen in my life. Good to see him doing his thing.
Yeah, and Adam Fanua-Blake as well. Just generally, what were your thoughts on the year he's had? And there's been the last couple of weeks, there's been some news that as a Warriors fan I've just had to take all in. But what are your thoughts see on Adam Fanua-Blake's year? Man, he's been very consistent.
He was good, and look, we put a lot of pressure on young footballers, in particular young front rowers. Now, if you look back at the game over the years, the great front rowers, the truly great front rowers don't reach that level until 28, 29 years of age. But we're trying to judge front rowers at 22, 23 years of age. Really, really unfair. Adam has always had the talent, hasn't always had the application, hasn't always had the discipline, but he found that he's found that right mix. He found it, this year, and he was tremendous. And he should be great for the Dragons next year.
Yeah, so just on Adam Fanua-Blake, because as I covered with Hold the Ball, another Warriors content creator, we did a bit of a reaction thoughts to the reports in regards to him potentially leaving the club, and the Warriors then released a statement saying he's committed to 2024. What how do you feel on Adam Fanua-Blake? Do you feel like next year, hopefully as a Warriors fan, he's going to be still, his heart's still going to be in it for the Warriors and his mind's not going to be somewhere else. But, there are reasons why a player wants to leave. There's always been this thing with the Warriors over the couple of years that players, play for the Warriors for a couple of years and then they decide to go on compassionate grounds. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, let's start with compassionate grounds.
Yep.
That never used to happen. It certainly didn't at any stage of my younger career or when I was a fan. It is very this generation. It is very 2023, and it is what it is. But my way of thinking is when you sign a contract, you honour that contract, and that's for both parties within a contract. You sign the contract, you honour the contract. And if Adam's playing like crap and he ends up playing in first division, well, the Warriors are still going to pay him the big dollars. But if Adam has become the best front rower or one of the best front rowers in the game and he thinks he's worth more, well, bad luck. You're stuck on the great money that you're on. I think it is time for some CEO, and I think that CEO has got to be Cameron George, just to turn around and say, no, you signed with us. No, you're not leaving. We're going to make things as comfortable for you as we can. I appreciate you missing your family, but you signed with us. That's what we've planned for, and that's what's going to happen. Adam was not rumoured to be leaving. He wasn't without a club. He was not going to walk out of the Warriors and hope a club picked him up on 800-something a season for next year. He had somewhere to go, and it was organised. Wherever that may be, I don't know. But he had something there. Now it's all changed. They've met in the middle, and it's another 12 months. I'd love to see Cameron George say, no, you're not going anywhere. And I would love to see him supported by the other CEOs in rugby league and by the NRL, and hold both parties, hold clubs and also hold players to contracts that are signed. That's what I grew up on. And yes, up to Waz, this is the second time Adam's done the compassionate ground one. So you read into that what you know.
Yeah, and Daniel Sexton saying here, hi, how are you? Hopefully the Warriors can make the finals next year. Up the Waz. Good to see you, Daniel Sexton. Hopefully hope you're doing well yourself. But yeah, well said there, Andy. Really well said, because thought I'd ask and give you your thoughts on it, because it's it is a little bit of a touchy sort of topic, because compassionate grounds, there's many meanings around it,
Yeah,
so
there is, and it's really tough, and I don't mean to sound like a grumpy old bugger, and everyone's got feelings, and everyone, day to day has got different issues in their life, and let's hope that we can all navigate our way through and do it with a smile on our face. And I don't wish ill upon anyone at all, but at what stage does someone have to put their foot down and say, enough of this? enough. It's happening too much in rugby league where you can just get out of a contract to say you want to move cities and it happens. Someone's got to stop the rot, and the sooner the better for me.
Yeah. Do you reckon the NRL should have like a transfer sort of window? Like, I know it's a different. Yeah. We've seen it in different sports, like football with the Premier League, so it's totally different. But do you feel like the NRL should do something similar in a way, like, or would it work? Or
I don't know. That's a discussion for someone a lot smarter than me. I don't know if it works, but I don't think it eliminates things like this Adam Fanua-Blake or Reece Walsh previously. I think they still pop up. So you can't have it. You can't have everything. You can't have all the money and no responsibility. I mean, young blokes signing for good money, living their dream, playing good footy because they're talented young fellas, but then they get offered more money and they want to, pull out of contracts. That's not me.
Yeah. Well said. But moving on from that topic now. So, just up the wires and saying here, agreed, Andy. It's happening far too often. So but moving on from that topic now. So, just looking at some of the younger Warriors players this year, like we've had quite a few of them make their debuts. We also had the likes of young Tane Tuapiki as well play some games for the Warriors. We had Ronald Volkman. We've had Luke Metcalf as well. So just looking in this year, is there any younger player that really stood out for you? Like I'm
a fan
that you think could play for the next couple of years for the Warriors?
I'm a fan of Tane Tuapiki. I like what I've seen on him coming through into first grade. I liked seeing what I saw in first grade. And the learning curve for these young blokes is going to be even steeper now because the side's going well and that first 13 is cementing themselves a position. Like in years past, let's take the Warriors centres 2 years ago, and I can't remember exactly who they were, but it could have been 2 of 5 guys any week because they didn't really nail down the position. Now, because of a good season, they've nailed down positions. The starting 13 is pretty concrete. You can almost make up the bench every week. That means this next generation, guys, 18 to 36 on the roster, it's harder to break into. So you've got to be better. You've got to improve. And as a result, the whole thing improves. The bottom gets better and it lifts everyone. So really exciting time for the Warriors. Yeah,
and we've got an SG Ball Cup team now back as well, and we've also got a Harold Matthews Cup team next year as well, and I think there's planning on having an NRLW side in the near future as well. So the club's heading in the real right direction in terms of trying to just grow in terms of their pathways, because the Warriors have not had that pathway system for a very long time. The New South Wales Cup team had a very good season as well. Slade Griffin, he is going to be promoted into the NRL coaching ranks next year in terms of assistant under Andrew Webster. So he's done a good job in his first year with the New South Wales Cup team. They almost they were in the preliminary finals. They were close to a grand final in their first year back in the comp. So
that could have been anything. And Slade's a good young man, and he's similar in a lot of respects to Andrew Webster. So they will work well together. And you'll miss Justin Morgan, but Slade will work well with Andrew. And because Slade has had a close working relationship with the New South Wales Cup guys, he is going to be he'll be the advisor for Andrew about what all these guys can do, because Andrew will see them at training. Most times Andrew will see them on video in games, the New South Wales Cup guys, but he won't have that intimate up close knowledge of what they do, how they do it. but Slade does. So, that's actually a really clever appointment. Because of the success of the New South Wales Cup side, Slade gets promoted and he is bringing his guys with him.
Yeah, and I watched quite a bit of the younger players this year closely. You had Kane Tuipiki, you had likes of your Ali Lautoas as well.
Yeah.
There's quite some great talent coming through, and it's good signs for the club that they can have some of those young players, and hopefully they get more opportunities in first grade in the future, whether it be next year or the next couple of years, because obviously the aim is to get those younger players into the first grade side. You don't want to be playing them a lot in New South Wales Cup or or the other grades. You want to be real slow and make sure they progress well. You don't want to rush them in.
No.
So
you don't want to rush them in, and you don't want to rush them in as a group either. And the rushing in as a group, there's been some awful messes over the years when mass changes have needed to be made at different clubs, and they try and bring in 7 new guys into a side. It just it turns to poo very, very quickly.
Yeah, and just a question here from up the wires is if RTS takes Pompey's spot, does he become a backup kicker to Sean Johnson?
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Emergency kicker. I think Roger is going to have enough opportunity to be busy next year without any kicking. That's a good point. And look, in the modern game, you need your 9, 6, 7, 1 to all have a kick, and you also need someone else, be it a back row or a centre on either side, to have a kick as well. So for the just in case plays where the ball goes to ground and everyone else is in front of you and someone needs to have a kick. But yeah, RTS, God, I can't wait.
Yep. Yeah, and just another player I really want to cover up on is another young player is Ronald Volkman. Now, Ronald Volkman, he had a very good year in the New South Wales Cup. He was one of the leading point scorers. He had some games where he came into the first grade side. He had some solid games, but I don't think he's not nailed a position yet. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Andy? Do you think he is a 6 or a 7? Because he's played at a 6.
Yeah. Realistically, in the modern day, 6 and 7 basically is just right hand, left hand of the field. One of the players is going to run the show and be on ball the whole time. The other one is, is going to wait for the magic. I think Ronald's a game manager.
Yeah.
But I think that is what Luke Metcalf was doing so well this year. Sean, to a degree, is a game manager, but he's more the instinctive, brilliant. He's organising, but he's also waiting for that, that magic. It'd be interesting to see. I think Ronald Volkman's a first grader. I really do. I don't know where. I don't know how. He's still a young guy. I think he's a tremendous footballer and a tremendous football brain. He's one of those guys, Ronald Volkman. He seems to be in control of his actions and what's happening in front of him, and he seems to know before anyone else. So, there's competition in those couple of spots, and up the wires here said Metcalf or Martin.
Yeah.
Wow. Again, both first graders. I'd love to see Tamari get a proper run without injury and not just for 10 weeks. I'd like to see him get a couple of seasons. I think he deserves that. Luke Metcalf, the timing of his injury the back end of the year just horrendous.
Yeah, it was stunning. Yep.
Really good, and both, as up to Waz said, different. Luke's attack, Tamari's defence.
Yeah. Just on Tamari Martin. What were your thoughts on his season? Because he had a very tough year, didn't he? He had a few injuries. It wasn't really a consistent running of games that he put together. Because I thought he started pretty well, but when he came back from that injury, he just couldn't find that form. That he showed.
Struggled to get back into it. Hasn't played enough regular footy over the last 5 or 6 years to be able to slot straight back in and just get back into it. When Tamari gets an injury, he's going to need a couple of weeks to find his feet. But in this game, we don't have a couple of weeks anymore. We don't have that waiting time, because a couple of weeks is a couple of losses. And if you take 4 or 6 points off any of those sides on the ladder, all of a sudden they're out of the finals. So we're an impatient group. We really are. And head coaches are even more impatient.
Yeah, and Metcalf as well. Look, I am a massive fan of Metcalf. Yep. Real massive fan of Luke Metcalf. And just I felt like when he came into the side, he really did combine very well with Shaun Johnson especially. And then he had that unfortunate injury, at the worst time too, because it was coming into the back end of the year and we were getting close to finals. And I thought the combination was going real strong.
Yeah, so dark.
Yeah, so it's a bit unfortunate, but hopefully next year he can, challenge for a potential starting spot in 2024, which I feel like he will.
It's going to be some interesting decisions for Andrew Webster. The end of February as we sort of start getting close, isn't it?
Yeah, and just next year, looking at Shaun Johnson and Tohu Harris, do you think that next year potentially may be their last years, or do you feel like they've got another season because they're off contract at the end of next year? Do you feel like they can hang around for a bit longer, or do you feel like it's time where some of the younger blokes come in? Or
again, this goes back to succession planning.
Yeah,
and
it does, yep.
They were expecting Shaun not to be there, next year.
Yeah. Yep.
So to have Shaun and Big Tohu both, both off contract, both in the twilight, you don't want them both going at the same time. Tohu's looking a bit bashed up and battered. He just puts everything into every game, and he always has the big unit. I don't know if he would have the petrol to keep going. It depends what happens this year. If you guys are winning and everyone's happy and no one's injured and everyone's enjoying footy and everyone's enjoying training, why the hell not go round again? Yeah. But if it's a tough year, and you're doing it tough and you're not enjoying training and you're losing games, why would you want to do it again? So we'll probably get a better gauge of what Shaun and Tohu are doing, I reckon, by mid-season, and we'll see it in their eyes and their body language.
Yep. Yeah. So just also, I wanted to give your thoughts on this. The Warriors 4-pack. If you look at the Warriors 4-pack right now, I feel like we need another prop. Well, we definitely will need another prop with Adam Fanua potentially leaving as well. But I'm looking at next year. What do you reckon? What position do you reckon the Warriors are short on if they're to challenge for a premiership or a consistent top 4 spot every year? What do you reckon?
I think you're going to need a front rower, and I thought that this year, with a question mark over Adden, with longevity over Tohu, Mitch Barnett can go from front row to lock. It doesn't matter to him. He plays the same game. I would suggest, I would suggest another front rower. I think you're well served everywhere else. You know, if Chance Nickel Kluckstar gets injured, Roger goes back. If one of the wingers gets injured, you know, or the centres, Pompey is there. The halves we've spoken about, Tohu and Mitch both locks. You know, you've got hooker with Wade and Jazz. Second row, Murata, Jackson. Might be short on a back rower.
Yeah.
But a front rower certainly.
Yeah, and we've also lost. We've also lost Josh Curran as well to the Bulldogs, which I was very gutted about because he has been very good for us for a couple of years. But obviously this year, you know, he's found it tough to get into the side because you had the likes of Jackson Ford, you had Murata Niokoro. You know, he was really finding it difficult to get the regular game time. So although I'm gutted that he's leaving, you know, I could understand, you know, the reason why he didn't want to go back, you know, back to Sydney. You know, his family's there. You know, the Bulldogs came calling, and you know what.
Yeah, I tell you one guy we haven't spoken about who had a great year, Dylan Walker, terrific, good mate of mine. Known him for a long time, and I was rapt to see little Dylan do his thing.
Yeah, Dylan Walker, I felt like was one of the most underrated signings going for the Warriors this year, and I was very high on him. A lot of people weren't too sure as well, but I was very happy with the way he went because the positions he covered, especially we saw him play in the halves. We saw him play a bit of a lock, you know, come off the bench, be that utility player. I felt if there was a utility player of the year, I probably would have given it to him. I know it might be a bit. I know I might be a bit biased, but I feel like I would have given it to him. If there was a utility player of the year, I probably would have given it to him.
Yeah, no, he had a terrific year, and he showed his value. It's amazing. I remember him playing 5'8" centre for South Sydney.
Yep.
Under 20s back in maybe 2012, 2013, and he was just an out-and-out speedster. That's all he had going. Not all he had going for him, but he was just fast and still is fast, but can play a whole bunch of positions. Good on him.
Yeah, and up the was mentioned here, Rocco Berry. You know, I want to give your general thoughts on Rocco Berry this year. He's coming pretty well, isn't he? Yeah. What are your thoughts?
He has had a good year, and he's about to learn a whole lot more with Roger coming in because there's going to be an emphasis on Roger from the coaching staff.
Yep.
And Roger's a smart footballer as well. So, you know, the centre pairings of Roger and Rocco, I think, big improvers for next year, mate.
Yeah, and I saw a strong showing from him for the New Zealand A side. He played in the New Zealand A side, and it was a very strong performance. And I feel like I'm the massive Rocky Berry fan myself, and I always been really high in terms of the way I've rated him. Very young player, and you know, I feel like people need to give him a bit of time because in the past there's been people that are pretty critical of him, and you know, he hasn't played a lot of NRL. You know, he's sort of come from a rugby union sort of background.
Yep.
And he's had some injuries as well. So, you know, I feel like this year when he's come into the side, his improvement, just the way he's shown his improvement defensively as well. There's a lot of people that always question his defence, but his defence has been pretty rock solid as well. So
yeah, I thought he's been vastly improved.
Yeah, so overall, when you look at this season for the Warriors, in terms of what do you give like a rating out of 10, and how do you feel like the next year is going to go for them, or the next couple of years? Do you feel like, you know, the Cowboys, you know, had a very good year in the previous year, and they dropped off, they missed the 8 altogether. Is there a fear for you as, you know, as a radio commentator? Podcast, is there any fear from you that they could drop off next year, or or do you feel like
that's the issue when you have a really successful season and so many of your players are playing career best footy?
Yeah.
What happens? And that's what happened with the Cowboys. So it's going to need to be a very calculated and very positive off-season from Andrew Webster. He is a calculated and positive person, so they've got the right bloke there. I don't see this stopping. I really don't. I think Mitch Barnett, Dylan Walker, and Murata, 3 genuine tough nuts, have added a bit of starch to this footy side. Not even so much on the football field, but on the training park. With how they approach games, I think they've been great. The Adam Fanua-Blake headlines aren't going to go away. That's going to have a bearing later in the season. But you've got Roger Tuivasa-Sheck coming back. That is a massive positive in so many ways. I don't see this ride ending, and for you Warriors fans, I'll finish it with this. Strap yourself in, because I reckon 24 is going to be a hell of a ride.
Yep, for sure. And we've got to also remember we brought back singing CHT as well. Shanaris DeVita is also coming back to the club. Well,
that's right.
It's going to be interesting to see, where they're going to fit him into the side. That's going to be a big talking point.
They've certainly got some halves there. That's about the 5th or 6th half we've mentioned Chanel Harris-Tavita. So, good luck to all of those guys battling over the off-season for the 2 jerseys.
Yeah, just what would you say your favourite Warriors game would be this year? Like, what is the game that really
Sharks Warriors? Yeah, definitely the Sharks. At that game we spoke about earlier, Sharks leading 30-0, Warriors win 32-30. Brilliant.
Yep. Yeah, and what about your favourite NRL moment this year?
Oh, I can hardly remember what I had for lunch, let alone what happened on the football field in March. Favourite couple of moments, I'll put them all into the grand final because that's the big one. The Ezra Mann hat-trick, brilliant, unbelievable, astonishing. Then Nathan Cleary's reply, even better. So, it'd probably be Nathan.
Yep. And what are your thoughts on the NRL 18th team? There's been some talks around the PNG coming into the comp. What are your thoughts on it? Who would you like to see come into the NRL as a team, like for the 18th side?
I don't know if the game is ready for an 18th side as yet.
Yep.
I don't. Peter V'landys is trying to rush it through, because what it does do, it opens up a completely new time slot for a new an extra game a week, so that increases the media money by whatever it is, 14% or 15%. Everything is pointing towards PNG, a side representing PNG based out of Port Moresby / Cairns. Again, I don't know if that's the answer. I really don't. You could mount a case for a Wellington side on the back of the Warriors' success. You could certainly mount a case for a 4th Brisbane side. You could say Western Australia as well, the Central Coast and New South Wales. There is a bunch of places that are going to be disappointed, but everything points towards a PNG entry.
Yeah, just on that, what are your general thoughts? Because a lot of people have seen they're so high on it, massive positives. A lot of people say it's great and it's good for the game and all that, but I'm personally a person that's just I'm not really in favour of it. What are your feelings there on the PNG side? I feel like there could be a team from Perth or a team from Adelaide come in.
If they're talking. If they're talking with the Australian Prime Minister about government funding, something's happening. If the governments of the 2 countries are involved in talks, something is happening. I don't know if it's the right team. I don't know if it's the right time. But the beauty of it is it's someone else's problem. They're on more money than me, and they get to make the decision. I just get to sit down and watch the footy.
Yeah, but have you been watching any of the Pacific Championship? What what are your thoughts on the international game? Because um, look, I feel like we should have the mid-year internationals back. I don't know whether it was the right way to
Yeah,
go
it's,
about it doing it at the end of the year, because the
I don't
NRL season's over. So
yeah, I don't know what you do with the schedule because
yeah,
State of Origin's taking out 7 weeks now, and that schedule's not changing. The international game
yep,
I love, and I want it to grow, and I want it to
yeah,
continue. But then you got the players saying they play too much football. Well, you can't both ways. The crowd in Hamilton last weekend was really disappointing for a final.
yep,
The performance was magnificent from the Kiwis and terrible from the Kangaroos, but the Kiwis were phenomenal. Best Kiwi performance bell to bell that I've seen. I don't know what's happening with the international game, and I don't know what the answer is. I really don't, because we want Australia, New Zealand,
mm,
Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, PNG, England to start with. We've got 7 sides there. Players need every couple of off seasons off. So how do you fit all these games in? I don't know what the answer is with the international game, and every time I think I've got the answer, I change my opinion. So
yeah.
I love it. I want it to prosper, but I just don't have answers on how it grows. I really don't.
Yeah, and the problem is the NRL season's a long one, and once the NRL season's over, people just clock off. And I
Yeah,
feel
they
like
do.
with the Pacific Championship, what hasn't helped is there's been some games where they've been a lot of blowouts. Really
Yeah,
uncompetitive games, and once people watch a game, they're just going to zone out. They're not going to be interested. So I'm a massive fan of the international game. I love the international game. I really want it to grow. I'm a big advocate for it. But the feeling I had going to the Pacific Championship, I just felt like it wasn't a great tournament. As a neutral, you'd sit down and watch, and you want to watch every game, because just it was tough to watch it. Like
Yep.
as a Kiwi, I was happy because the Kiwis won against Australia, of course, but just in general, when you watch the other games, you sort of just lose your interest. But just a comment here from RVIDYN saying Samoa's Tonga Test match at Eden Park on Suncorp Parramatta would have been good numbers.
Yeah, they could. Anytime Samoa Tonga do their thing, as you guys well know, it's fabulous. It probably doesn't matter which stadium you throw it in. You get the red and the blues doing their thing. Oh yes, love to see it. We could almost disqualify Samoa and Tonga from playing anyone else, and every off season just have a 3-test series between Samoa and Tonga. Let them bash each other up for 3 weekends in a row. They'd love it, and we'd love it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So just anything I think that's pretty much all I've covered on. But just on the whole season now, it's done and dusted. We go into next year. No, it's a bit early to ask you for predictions, but just maybe it's the little feeling of what do you think next year?
Little insight. I think Penrith and Brisbane are going to be very, very difficult to beat again. And at this stage, it wouldn't surprise me to have those two in the grand final. But a lot of things have got to happen. Both were very fortunate with injuries at the right time this year. I think we're going to see a lot of player movement over the next 6 weeks. And I might reserve my opinions until the ball actually gets kicked off, because I think there's going to be a lot of player movement. I think there's going to be a lot of stories and a lot of back pages in rugby league between now and March, and it may look very, very different to what it does now.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just for me, probably just regards to predictions, they'll probably come out next year around February or March. Just give a bit of time before the trials and all that sort of happen. A lot of people would like to put out their predictions quite early, and I'm just going to wait because there's usually dramas and stuff, with players, and you just don't know. So right. But anyways, thank you very much, Andy, for coming on. Really appreciate it. It's been a joy to have you on as well, chatting about the footy season as a whole, and I love the work that you do with your podcast and that. And like I say, I highly recommend everyone go and check him out. Eddie Raymond Unfiltered Podcast.
Thanks, guys.
It's been a joy. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you to everyone up the wires. Thank you for your chat tonight. And hey, guys, enjoy your off season. Just make it a safe one. Every day over here, we're reading and seeing on the news about car crashes and accidents, and you're all too precious. So look after yourselves, and we'll chat footy in 2024, guys.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Just again, if Andy ever wants to come back on, or whether he's got time, he's a really busy man, but whether he's got the time, maybe next year at some point. If he wants to, let me know. He's more than welcome to come on again.
Easy. We'll do it all again.
No worries. So I'd like to thank all the viewers for tuning in and watching. Make sure you go and like the live stream, click the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, if you're a new viewer. And also, like I said, go and check out Andy Raymond's Unfiltered Podcast. He's on all the podcasting platforms of Apple, Spotify, you name it, every platform available out there. And you can also follow him on the socials of X, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah. And he's got a website as well. For those of you who don't have social media, he's got a website as well. So go and check him out there. But thanks, everyone, for tuning in. That is it for the chat tonight in terms of the off-footy discussion for the off-season. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you do like the live stream again if you haven't done so already, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the week. Have a good weekend. And, we'll see you all soon. Have a good one. Good night.